You have a Klan robe in your closet.
My granddad's. I have a right to keep it. It's my legacy.
You should be so proud of your legacy. Why'd you hide it?
You don't know me, old man.
Oh, yeah. I know you.
We're here, episode 6 of Watchmen, The Extraordinary Being. The Watchmen series has been nodding towards racism since it begun, and for the most part, it's a theme I've been avoiding, because due to the strong overtones of racial injustice in the series, I knew an episode like this was coming. Now, as an African American, nothing in this episode was especially eye-opening, as the feelings it expresses the norm for me. However, I didn't expect it here, or rather expect it to be expressed how strongly it was. Now, we're not going to retrace the episode because I think anyone who saw it gets the point, but rather here, I just want to ask some questions worth pondering on. The question I want to ask is if this episode is fact or fiction. Not in terms of actual events, but in terms of the point this episode hit. Are there any truth to them? Do white people destroy black communities, especially when they begin to thrive? In terms of the identity of hooded justice, is history being told how it is or how certain people want it to be told? Can trauma really be passed down through the generations? Science makes the point that a lot of how we function is due to instincts being passed down in our DNA. For example, the fight or flight reflex. Once upon a time, mankind had to hunt for food, and we developed instincts to protect us from the wild. The series make the argument that trauma is passed down in our DNA much like those instincts, and for the same reason, for protection. With that said, is the instincts developed from that trauma wrong? Or rather, are black people feelings about white people wrong? Let's dive deeper into this. First off, do black people hate white people? Well, in this series, Angela comes across to the untrained eye as another black woman in a fictional world where black people receive reparations and should be happy. She runs around the first episode beating up racist white people and cracking down on a white supremacy group. But then we find out some key things about Angela. That her best friends were white. One she invites into her home. The other she adopted their kids and raised them as her own. While trying to figure out this puzzle placed in front of her, she turns to her most trusted friend, a white man. Why? Now listen closely because this may be the only question I answer. It's because black people don't hate white people. This is shown again in Hooded Justice's relationship with Nelson. So why all the tension? Well, if you bothered to think about any of the questions I already asked, you may have a clue. It seems like the black people in the show continues to be betrayed. Looking Glass snitches on Angela when she turns to him for help, and Nelson looks the other way when Hooded Justice turns to him. The reason why? Because of perspective. For example, the captain. He doesn't see the wrong of keeping a Klansman uniform in his closet. The question being asked is, if he's wrong, can he keep a Klansman uniform in his closet and not be a racist to some extent? Does this make him naive or bad? And is being naive just as bad as being bad? Do he get a pass because he has a black friend? Moving along, is there really some great white supremacy conspiracy going on? Can media really impact the masses in terms of how they perceive black people? Why are black people always angry? Are black people always angry? Are black people a violent people, or is that just the way they are painted? Now, that brings us back full circle. What truth are there in these questions? I believe it's different for everyone, depending on who you are and what lens you're viewing the world from. I don't think this episode is trying to paint anyone as good or evil, but rather examine why and how things are the way they are today.
What color are those townsfolk?
White.
Tell me, what happened to the Dreamland Theater, where you watched that picture over and over while your mama played the piano? What the Klan and the fine white citizens of Tulsa do?
They burned it down.
You ain't gonna get justice with a badge, Will Reeves. You're gonna get it with that hood. And if you want to stay a hero, townsfolk gonna need to think one of their own's under it. You sure you want to do this?
I'm sure.